Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fried stream for 0.5.5. Oh, let me go ahead and mute that so I'm not hearing myself. Today we have a pretty good amount of developers with us. We have me, Buckley, the game designer, Fuja here, one of the programmers, Hiralainen, the team lead programmer, Max Donovan, another programmer, Nunez, graphic artist and programmer, and finally Film, another programmer.
Hello.
And I suppose today we introduce a lot of nice bug fixes for the current version of Thrive. In more particular interest, I'm sure you're happy to hear that we fixed a lot of bugs for the binding agents, so colonies are quite stable now. If someone would like to describe the full length of that.
Well, the previous system has been pretty buggy, allegedly. But yeah, there have been a few bugs that are fixed. Like when your cell just randomly drifted off in a random direction before. That should be fixed.
For the most part, yeah. I do believe there's still an issue with the Pily, if I'm not mistaken. If y'all still...
And there was something with the rotation, right? Or was that fixed?
Nope, that's fixed.
Yeah, that's fixed, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, when you have a pilot, there's still a little bug with the small bug with like where it just drifts off in a random direction. Sadly, I've noticed that like last minute, or we've noticed that, and haven't had time to fix that.
Well, on the bright side, it's at least mostly fixed.
But I'm working on it.
No more Ferris wheels.
I'm gonna admit that was pretty cool, having a sort of flail cell on the edge, just slinging it around.
I mean, of all the bugs to have, just at least it was something visually interesting as opposed to just crash to desktop every time or just soft lock.
Right. Anyhow, so that's great. I'm glad to see that the binding agents are performing quite well. I'm hoping that in the next update, we might be able to push some sort of additional features to it that I guess we'll have to see in time. Another thing we implemented in this version is a new spawn system that allows for a more balanced distribution of compounds and cells in the environment. They noticed that the caves and other places are now actually spawning chunks and such, when they previously didn't. So huzzah! If anyone would like to add to that. No?
Well, maybe I could say something. I guess we'll find out if my mic works on stream, because I'm using a new OS version with bunch of new stuff. So
yeah, works fine.
I was updating all of my like OBS scenes until the last minute, and still they aren't perfect right now. So yeah, basically the issue was that all of the different like spawn types, all of the chunks, iron, all of the species, those like were randomly like given a chance to spawn something, and it went in the order of like they are registered. But now it builds a new list of things that it will attempt to spawn, and then when that is empty, then it is that list is made again and shuffled. So that should give a more uniform like distribution. So no longer should some like high density stuff not end up like spawning correctly like in the cave, I think something like the toxins or something ate up all of like the entity capacity, so no iron actually spawns. So that was the issue, I think. So
Yeah, yeah, that was pretty much the idea where you had basically every time every tick for spawning, the system tried to spawn chunks or cells or a thing like this, and it had a limit of things that it could spawn. So basically, in the cave, the toxins were so densely present in the cave that it always ended up spawning, and so it went to the cap, and so nothing ever spawned for each spawn tick, and as it was reset every time, you had this all over again. So now the thing is, you first have to go through everything before resetting the list you want to go through.
Yeah, that's quite nice. It really, it's really noticeable in how gameplay's been improved to actually not have to be so reliant on luck, at least not in total. It feels more stable, more reliable. Suppose another thing we should mention is that we ended up fixing the AI a bit. It's gonna be a bit less stuck on things like chunks and such. They'll try and go around them and all that. That and who worked on the AI again? Was it
No, that was I fixed my own mistakes there. I forgot that the area of a circle increases with the square of radius, not the linear factor. I forgot middle school geometry, which is why the AI actually, when seeking chunks, intentionally misses slightly, so that it doesn't get stuck on the tip of piluses like it used to in 0.5.3. The problem is that intentional miss increased with the size of the microbe, which means as your microbe got bigger and bigger, it would eventually aim for a spot where it wouldn't even hit, which is why it was spinning always to the lower right of where the chunk was. Now that is a fixed distance, so it doesn't have that same problem.
wonderfully put? So we did also end up fixing or adding a new hotbar. My hopes is that the hotbar will make it a bit more understandable and obvious on which controls do what. For a long time, a lot of players, they really didn't know that engulfment was even a thing, let alone how to do it. So the hotbar acts as a sort of visual guide and reference for what abilities your cell has and how to activate them. It's really quite nifty, and I'd love to hear what everyone thinks about it. And I can't recall if it made it in there yet, but there should be a feature to disable it. If it's not in this update, we might have to see about putting it in the next.
you mean the hotbar
Yes,
entirely?
the hotbar.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there is the option. If you
That's good.
don't want to see it, then there's a checkbox in the options menu to hide it entirely.
So if folks feel that the hotbar kind of cramps up the screen, well, there you have it. Next up, I suppose, Nunez, would you like to describe the new graphics changes? Quite beautiful.
Absolutely. So with the new graphics, all I did was with the 2D membranes, I gave them normal mapping. And what normal mapping is, that's when you take something and you map directions that light can reflect off of to it. So for example, if I have a ball, I can normal map bumps onto this ball and I can make it look really, really rough without adding any geometry whatsoever or any rendering time because graphics cards really don't care about textures. So that was a great change, and it fixed an issue before where I'm sure everyone noticed cells were really, really dark. This was because when the light was hitting the the mesh, the plane, it didn't have any information on like the curvature of the object. It was all one direction. So it was just reflecting one like shade. But now that it has normals, it's reflecting the shading based off of a spear. And I also added normal mapping to the iron chunks, which that was actually already implemented. Someone already made all the maps and everything, but we just didn't use it in the shader for whatever reason. And then,
Nicely put, man. Oh, do
Yeah.
you like to add something?
yeah, and then I was just gonna add with the membranes those normal maps. Right now, all it is, it's just a spear. So if an artist wants to make, other textures or things for the other membranes, it would not be very difficult at all. You just have to sculpt or texture or whatever a spear, make the normals, and I can put them in.
It's quite cool, and it really shows how well it works. I suppose the next thing we'd like to bring up is the new saving system. Recently, we had a new addition on how you can transfer your saves from the previous version to the latest version, which is actually really nice. You no longer have to leave your cells behind. If your Landon would like to add to that.
Yeah, we had been like waiting pretty long to have a feature so that people wouldn't have to like start over each version. So I noticed that when I was doing some naming changes, I named the one of the membranes something different, like internally, so that broke actually the save compatibility. So I thought that that is pretty silly reason for people to have to start over. So I wrote a save upgrade system, and there is one save upgrade step right now, which upgrades from 0.5.4 to the new release. And well, if we take care to add new upgrade steps, then we can hopefully keep safe compatibility for quite a while. But if we have some really major changes, that would be really hard to like upgrade the old saves. Then we'll probably still have the occasional save breakage point.
Thank you, Hero Landon. You can also drag and drop a save onto the game window and it'll load it, which is also really nifty.
Yeah, that was surprisingly easy to actually make, because Godot gives us this signal where we can just connect, and then Godot lets us know when the user dropped a file onto the game, so we can then look at that to see if it is a save, and if it is, then it can be loaded.
Oh, interesting. Ah, yes, I almost forgot. Auto-Evo. We recently made a nice improvement to our good old Auto-Evo algorithm. Y'all might notice that the AI cells are a bit more competitively adaptive than compared to how they used to be. If anyone would like to add on that.
Sure. I guess I'll jump in on that. I mean, really, I think the solution was cheating. I think the big change was really that it encourages more specialization as opposed to just saying, hey, you have a fang, so you're a good predator. Hey, you have a leaf on you, so you're a good plant too. And you just kind of get something with a little bit of everything. I think this one encourages a little bit more of specialized plants and specialized predators and some specialized in-betweeners. Definitely a lot more improvements to make there, but hopefully it should be a little bit more challenge as well as a little bit more of just specialized prey for the other players to interact with, a little more of an ecosystem more than just kind of random mutations on whatever the player was.
It certainly seems to work. I've noticed that the worlds of Fry are a bit more diverse than they once were. Like, you can actually see sort of niche start to develop in each place rather than just sort of Frankenstein's monster cell parts like you usually see.
Do you actually have an easy time noticing all the species? That was my hardest part in coding it, was actually like cataloging all the life I made. Like I had to write special code to make everything just kind of show up in a line and just stay still for a second. Because like I'd see something on the chart that was like, oh yeah, premiums, gabibibium, but then I could never find a scubibium, so I didn't know if it was something reasonable or something ridiculous because I had to go hunt this petri dish for this microbe.
Well, for me, I just had to keep a general sense of how cells seem to be evolving. I'd look at the patch and see if there was a species that seemed to be thriving with a decent amount of population, and I'd go and look for it. When I finally found them, I noticed that they'd be particularly specialized compared to the others. Whether they had, like, say, a large amount of, thylakoids, it was stuck onto my tongue, compared to the others, I'd be like, ah, yes, they're actually fulfilling the role of the plant quite well. That's something you didn't actually see before the Auto-Evo change. Most cells, they just ended up having a bunch of random parts. You know what I mean? These, they feel a bit more directed and actually seem to specialize in ways. That's what I noticed.
That is good to hear. Let's see if the players concur in time.
That being said, I do hope we'll find some way to add a better way to find or observe these cells, because the biggest issue with testing Auto-Evo is, like you said, it's hard to really get a broad sense of how it's playing out with our current observation tools.
Yeah, actually TJ Vale, who is our ex-theorist, suggested to make an Auto-Evo exploring tool. So there is actually an issue on GitHub where we would have this tool where you can like reset the evolution and start a new world, and then like buttons to step through the evolution, and then some kind of display to show the stats, and also to view the species it generates. So that would make tweaking Auto-Evo so much easier. That I think that is worth it to make it, and then we could include that as an extra tool in the game options menu, so even players could probably get some enjoyment out of playing with that.
That sounds quite terrific, actually. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was about to say what you were about to say and then add self-deprecation. So go ahead.
No, I pretty much said exactly what I was intending to.
Cool, self-deprecation away. That would be really cool. It would also show off all of our flaws too, which would probably be better for the long-term future of Thrive. But I'm sure there's a lot of stupid things happening in Auto-Evo that I have not caught yet.
Likewise. But it's important that we do catch them, so revealing our flaws would ultimately be the best solution.
Evolution.
Alright. What have I not covered? Could anyone help me here? Anything I missed? There's a lot of miscellaneous fixes.
I believe a lot of bugs were fixed this patch, weren't they?
Mm-hmm. Should hopefully allow for a much smoother experience for everyone. Well, how about future things? What is everybody intending to work on? Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Signaling agents. I'm sorry. I just saw someone comment that.
Yeah, that would be nice. I still have like 50% of my backlog for pretty important issues to fix. So now that I'm working part-time on the game, on my first day I selected like a batch of like 30 issues that I could probably solve in under like 2 or 3 hours each. Then I've been working through that. So for this release, I think I got through about like half of my like the top picks for the most easiest things to like check off finally after years of being like issues. So I'm going to like continue with that, and also continue working on the process of getting Thrive on Steam and also on itch.io. Those are probably the only things I have like time to really focus on.
Important indeed.
Sounds like you made good use out of your part-time availability. Now you have it.
Yeah, I'm trying to show people that I can actually develop Thrive pretty fast when I and I can put in the hours to work on the game.
Right, well. So right now, a lot of people may notice that it's rather hard to catch up with your own cells because they move at the same speed as you. We hope that by implementing a sort of signaling agent, you would be able to just call your little cell allies to you, rather than them just running off doing their own thing and you trying to catch them. That would allow for you to better form an aggregate colony instead of playing tag. And of course, there could be other potential uses for signal agents, but I suppose that's all in the writing we'd have to puzzle out.
I suppose that the audio is working on the stream still.
Yeah.
People aren't
checked
like...
it.
I just saw in the YouTube studio that there's a suggestion that the audio stream's current bitrate 0 is lower than the recommended bitrate, so...
Oh dear.
Yeah, that would be pretty bad.
Oh, but audio's fine. I've just checked it.
Okay, yeah.
Type 1 in
that's-
chat if you can't hear us.
Great request.
Yeah, I would hope that if they see like the names on Discord light up, but they can't hear anything, someone would say something.
Thank you, Fuja.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I don't know if people are hearing us, but assuming they do, on the signaling agents,
Someone just said they can't hear us. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Hopefully
Oh.
that's a joke.
oh
I sure hope so.
well, let's just hope that's a single one.
Okay.
So
Yeah, sorry to interrupt again, but like the YouTube notice that the bitrate is 0 just went away, so
Okay.
Splendid.
Sounds great.
go ahead.
So
Continue.
yeah, signaling agents. There have been like two approaches to them that have been proposed. The first one was about having them like kind of an order, like a bunch of orders you can give to other cells, like go there, follow me, or something like this, but which is fairly easy to use, and that allows for very easy coordination with your fellow cells. The other approach could be the one of a kind of key lock system where you'd have a signaling agent that could be used to attract some cells. So you could attract your teammates you've designed for this, but you could also attract potential predators or preys. So in one case, it can be an advantage because you get to attract some preys. On the other hand, you may get attacked by someone while trying to just find someone to bind with. So this could allow for a large and wide range of possibilities. It's much more complicated, and it might have some issues like, how do we get the player affected by the signaling agents? Should it be affected? So overall, there are quite a whole lot of questions that are still unanswered today. But yeah, I hope that we managed to get something out of this for 0.5.6. Sorry.
Yeah, I had to actually look into that myself.
Certainly easy to make AI go to a spot if you know the spot you want them to go to, balance-wise.
Right.
I'm very curious if the addition of binding agents will make it seem like moving to multicellular, suddenly you lose a lot of control, because I presume that all the various worms are not going to be able to tell the worms what to do.
Well,
That's
maybe we
Like-
wouldn't have that kind of thing, but like I was thinking that the signaling agent would work kind of like pheromones, like basic versions of those, so the cells wouldn't have like very smart like they wouldn't be very smart. So there would be just a few basic things like if you detect this signal in chemical, then run away or run towards it. Like it would
It's a
be
good way to look at it.
pretty basic.
Look forward
That's-
to the experimentation.
Another thing to think about in that regard is like how Kino. Not had the words stuck on the tip of my tongue again. Kino reception. Right now, as you're a cell, it's actually really effective due to being in an aqueous environment and all the compounds being particularly large compared to you. But once you get into dry land or otherwise just particularly large, it becomes a bit more complex. As well as when you become a larger organism, your chemoreception will be less centralized, so you might have difficulty, say, where am I going with this? Basically, what works as a cell might not work as well once you're a bunch of cells, and you have to get around this by designing those features in greater detail. Say, chemoreception would become sort of smelling, and in that case, the signaling agents would have to be worked around to become pheromonal systems and dispersion mechanisms. So you have to design your organism to disperse these pheromones, as well as to know when to disperse them and what to do when it detects them.
You've got to hit the other animal in the nose.
I hope
see.
that made sense. Anyways, what next, y'all?
Was that like all regarding this release and the next release? Probably. I think we can move on to the questions. This time we once again have actually some priority questions for the patrons who support me working part-time on the game, so big thank you. Well, we got just one person asking questions, but they asked quite a few, but I think if someone wants to read them out, or I'll post them in the chat. It should be visible on stream now. So the first question basically features planned for the next release, and basically those 2 new organelles and bug fixes. I think that's pretty much the plan, and of course quite often we have someone just come in and make some unexpected feature that we didn't plan on having made yet, so it's quite unpredictable. And major fixes for the next release, those would be fixing that new Pilus colony bug, and then today was reported another kind of bug where if some colony members or something disappear, then there's a chance to crash or something. Then I guess we can move on to the first question that wasn't answered yet. Question 3 here was that what are the next steps of the organization? What will improve, and how can we get more programmers? So regarding the organization, I think we are like mostly fine. It's just some catching up needs to be done with the accounting agency doing our accounting. Then managing the donations campaign money and reporting that to the police after the campaign is finished. That needs to be done, and also this year I need to prepare a document stating why we should be considered a non-profit. The tax agency didn't like that. I was thinking that we should only recruit from the Thrive developers initially, but I guess that counts as not the general public, so they didn't like that, so we changed that, and on our website now we have the instructions for anyone who wants to join. They can an application where they say they want to join and agree the ideological purpose behind the association. And then how can we get more programmers? So, I mean, I would like to first be able to work on Thrive full time. For that, at minimum about 3 times the current amount needs to be like monthly income for the association. And I think I would be able to just barely like survive on that amount of money taking out all of the taxes and employer related costs. But I hope like the future Steam release would help with that, and of course we have the donation campaign ongoing right now. So yeah, more money going into the project will help get more programming work done. I think once I can work full time with a, let's say, decent salary, I mean, I'm willing to take quite a big pay cut compared to working on some business-to-business software if I can work on Thrive. But after that, I think we can consider if we can get first another part-time developer on the game, and maybe in the far future another full-time developer. So, but that's a pretty long-term plan.
Just occurred to me that this thing has been playing the entire time.
Yeah, maybe another song for just to break up the monotony a bit. Does anyone here have any comments on that association stuff, or?
I just hope it grows.
I'm
Was
afraid
it-
I don't have it.
Was it more difficult to make the association international, as I assume it is given the current members, than just local to Finland?
It's actually not more difficult. You can just have international members easily. The only difficulty is that I have to be like the president of the association, because you need special permit to have a non-Finnish resident being the president, so that's a bit difficult, but there actually doesn't exist an international non-profit organization. They all have to like register in some country to actually exist. So I was like the person pushing us forward, so might as well pick the country I live in. So
Makes sense. Some country has to be the one that takes responsibility.
yeah, I think we answered the question 3. Then once again, question about the stage prototypes. I'll say to that just maybe that might be possible, at least like one of them for the Steam release, but probably like next year. I'd hope to like finish all of the small backlog issues and store releases this year. Next year I can like more focus on pushing the game forward with the skeleton stage prototypes to show some of the like the overall vision. Then we have a question for Iced Euro. I'll probably just have to like write this down and try to ping him about it. I don't actually know what distro it is based on, but I think it hasn't been like updated since the first it was made. And then Nans, next question for you. Will the membrane become 3D?
Did you ask when will it become?
Will it's, so you can answer with one word, I think.
Yeah, it'll become 3D eventually.
Yeah, so answer is yes, it will become 3D. Then will Auto-Evo ever use calculus? And I think you Americans need to help me out here. I can't remember what calculus is.
Calculus like derivatives, integrals, slopes of equations.
Calculus is, let's say you have a curve, like a curve on a graph, but this curve does not follow a single equation. It's like a really wiggly curve. You can use calculus to find out how the different slopes are among that curve. Like, if it has different slopes. And that's the main use of calculus. I do it a lot.
Okay, so
mechanical
like
engineering.
differentiation tangents of functions and integration, those are like
Yeah,
calculus stuff.
That's
Okay.
all calculus.
Yeah, I mean, here in Finland, like we learn those topics, but we aren't told that all of those are calculus. We just learn these new math concepts.
Really, you don't start your learning of calculus with Isaac Newton getting so bored that he invented a new kind of math?
No, I think we did cover like Isaac Newton in physics class, but not in math class.
That's the first thing I learned in math. Isaac Newton is cool. Okay, on to math.
Well, neither did we learn it in France. So perhaps it's I don't know, like a English-speaking country thing. Like
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe it is. Maybe that's an English world thing. I don't
because
know. I never thought about that.
in France we just learned that this relies on works from French mathematicians, and I guess that's pretty much common in every country to just put forward your own mathematicians. Like you've got huge name changes and so on. So
Do you use that apostrophe annotation for derivatives that the French use and everyone else despises? Because we have to use the d over dx because the French did the apostrophe thing, but the English did the d over dx.
yeah, the thing is we use the apostrophe in mathematics, but we use the d over df on when dealing with physics. So
Britannia
That's
rules the physics.
I guess
What
so.
the hell are they doing snooping around here?
But yeah,
I'm sorry, we derailed.
Yeah, to go back onto the question, will Auto-Evo use calculus? I think, Thim, you're kind of used to this topic.
Somewhat. I think the big thing about Auto-Evo is you can always go as deep as you want. I think the reason my PR got through when so many others died in forum conversations is because I decided to take shortcuts to say, oh yeah, niches, they should exist, and competitive exclusion principle, let's implement that. And there's a lot of math that I know isn't really true in the current version. I could see trying to do difference over time between generations. That could be an obvious case of derivatives. I could see population density, area times population. You could get an integral out of that. I'd love to talk to this person more just because it's such a generic question. I could see a million places calculus could come in, but I don't know if any of those would be particularly useful.
The 3D
I think ultimately,
the 3D membranes is literally entirely calculus. I had to use math.net or whatever the hell it is.
all right, so incorporate those into the Auto-Evo, and then we can just say yes and skip the question. Brilliant.
Yeah, but more generally, if we want to really simulate evolutionary biology as we know it today, well, we have to take into account we will have some calculus in the end. But the thing is, how close how accurate do we want to be in our models? Because Thrive is a game, so we also do not want the Auto-Evo to run for like a week or so. So in the end, it will depend on whether it's worth it or not. Of course, it will be more accurate because calculus is used in evolutionary biology and to account for evolutionary tendencies. But in the end, we have to get sure that it does fit with our goals. And I'm not totally sure it does. Thim's Auto-Evo algorithm is already pretty decent and can be expanded upon. So we'll see if the need to change it to a more calculus-based approach arises.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really speaks to what do people see from Auto-Evo. Like, if you take the numbers and start trying to chart things out with the various numbers that our Auto-Evo produces, I mean, your species has 600 population in the entire ocean, 600 bacteria. That's ridiculous. But, like, I think what people notice is, oh, hey, we're near a hydrothermal vent, and hey, things are eating hydrogen sulfide. Oh, hey, we're near the sun, stuff is eating the sun, and stuff is eating the stuff that eat the sun. And, what level of detail do we need to be accurate to? How much scrutiny do we need to get close to? Calculus is, I presume, expensive. I have not tried doing calculus in C#. So, yeah, I guess a lot of unknowns. I personally don't have a final plan for how Auto-Evo is. I just tried to make it better than it was yesterday. Tomorrow I'll try and make it better than today.
Yeah, definitely. I want to see more incremental Auto-Evo changes rather than just see like a ton of really cool concepts die on the forums.
Yeah, I think that in the end, anyways, Auto-Evo will have to remain simple, at least for the microbial stage, because as Tim put it, like it won't change much shifting to a calculus or whatever approach that is really accurate with how the real world work, but not really fit for Thrive. Now it may change when we come to really later stages, like late multicellular, where you'll have a lot of interactions, and this could be worth it to rework. But while focusing on microbial stage, sorry, I'm losing my English there. While focusing on this stage, there is little reason to just go to computationally expensive approaches.
Yeah, I am scared once we get to multicellular and aware, just that so much more is going on. It's going to be much more obvious that species are not doing super smart things, and then we might need to rethink it entirely and perhaps get something more simulation based. But that is for the future. I guess we'll start with finding an algorithm that works for now and try to build upon it as we get smarter as time goes on.
One thing that's nice that I'd like to add here, Godot 4.0 is going to have compute shaders. And for those that aren't aware, a compute shader, that is when you do what you would normally do on a CPU on your GPU. And that's relevant because your GPU, the individual cores in it, they're pretty weak. They're not as strong as your CPU at all. But your GPU has like hundreds of cores in it. So things like calculus, things like matrix math, all that sorts of stuff that you would do for Auto-Evo and for really complicated worlds, a GPU could do it under a second because it has to render like, I don't know how many thousands of pixels are on a screen, but it does that 60 times every second. So you can imagine if you replace pixels with math, you would get quite some fast stuff. And I think that's really exciting. So I don't think we'll have a problem in the future. It's just for now.
It's probably, I think it's much more difficult like to program the compute shaders. So probably the first version will be like CPU only, and then there will be like a parallel GPU implementation.
That is definitely a thing. Someone does have to. Because with Godot, the way they're going to implement it is you do have to write quite a significant amount of stuff in order to implement shaders that are not like the vertex and fragment, which is color and position. So stuff like tessellation, compute, just geometry in general, you got to write some separate code a different way. But it will be possible in Godot 4.0. And from what I'm reading, as long as you have a recent graphics card, it will work pretty well.
Yeah, only potential problem is that as we are like rendering the game at the same time, we can't use too much compute power.
this is sort of true, but it's just it's really just a matter of we can offload the entire workload of the CPU onto the GPU. That would be very silly. But you can, GPUs do have a lot of space. Like they have a lot of cores, so you could offload quite a bit to it, even if it's small.
Well, I mean, if you run Thrive, actually, on my previous GPU, if I full screened Thrive on my 4K screen, it couldn't reach 400 FPS, and the GPU utilization like reached 99%. So if you run ridiculous frame rate at 4K, you can eat up all the computation power from your GPU. So yeah, we do need to be a bit careful with that, but yeah, on my new GPU it still runs at 400 FPS even at 4K, so I guess there's some leftover compute power there, but yeah, we need to consider that, and we probably need to like keep the CPU code also up to date so that the player can choose if they don't have very good graphics card, but and they struggle to like keep a steady frame rate with the compute shaders, so they could maybe like switch between the two.
Well, I hate to end this wonderful conversation, but we still got one more priority question to answer.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, so I think I can quickly eliminate the amino acids and fatty acids. Those used to be in the game, but like we threw them out as unnecessary complexity, so I don't think we will be adding those back in. And then radioactive rocks, that's been actually designed, and there's a model and stuff. It just needs some programming work to move that forward. And the magnesium, so
I try to avoid using more compound types than we currently have, because we have to worry about color coding and all that, which can become quite a problem.
And they add unnecessary complexity, like you have to find like 5 or 6 different types of clouds or something like that. So yeah, I don't foresee us adding magnesium anytime soon. And then a sneaky edit added a new question. So my GPU, it's a 6900 XT, so I caved in and got the only type of GPU that was in stock, so that's what I have now. And yeah, I mean, lucky, I think, yeah, as I said, it is more powerful than my previous GPU, so and I guess I don't need to go into detail. We can, I think I can quickly say that then we have had this normal non-priority questions thread, and here the only question was about the version numbers, which I answered actually immediately because I've seen this too often to ignore. So the answer is that the first number represents the number of finished stages. So 1.0 would be finished microbe stage instead of finishing the entire game. So that was all of the pre-stream questions. So guess we don't have anything else planned other than just looking at the chat and discussing some random stuff.
I see a chat question, if they can ask chat questions.
Yeah, we can move on to those.
don't know if anyone was curating those or reading from the top.
I don't think we picked anyone this time to keep a track of those. So I mean, if you got some,
Dear. I did forget about that.
but I mean, if you have written down something, like you can like read them to us so we can discuss them, or we can just wait for new questions to appear in the chat to boost stream activity.
I see a question for what you predict is going to happen after we put Thrive on stream. I think that's some interesting futurism to engage in there.
You mean Steam?
Sorry, did I say stream?
Yes.
I meant Steam. My bad.
Sorry, what was the question about Steam?
It was any predictions for what will happen after you put Thrive on Steam?
I'm hoping that we might sell like few hundred copies over a few months. That would be pretty awesome.
I have a question here. It says, what's the current state of 3D membrane development? I feel like
that was the top of my list of things to talk about. Want me to go?
well, I mean, depends on how long it's gonna go. Go ahead. Just go ahead.
I can give a summary. So basically, all the code is complete, like all of the classes, all of the major files and the interfaces. But what's not done is I need to do the rendering. So basically, I need to have to completely and utterly rewrite the membrane shader because it completely breaks everything. Because it's meant for something that is 2D, not 3D. And that's obviously quite problematic. And when I try to run it in Godot, you just get a little like cube thing, which I guess is the default mesh for the membranes. But yeah, once I get the rendering done, we will have 3D membranes. All the rest of the code is done.
That's good to hear.
Alright, so if you don't have anything else to add, we can move on to another question. Tibet A asked, bug with colonies will be fixed. For example, separating a cell from the colony, and the answer is yes. We did fix the issue with cells separating spontaneously from their colony.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that should be 100% fixed. The ghost drifting should be like 99% fixed. Unless you add a pilot to your cell.
Yeah.
Nicholas O'Neill here asked, how many holes in a polo? And if they're referring to a shirt, I do believe there would be around 4.
I feel like there are more.
It depends. How close are you going to examine them? I mean, under a microscope, you might notice there are a lot of holes in between the threads.
I feel like 4 is still a very bad estimate of the number of holes between the threads in a shirt.
Well, I did not realize we were talking about the microscopic scale here until now.
You brought up the microscopic scale, sir.
Touche.
Maybe the polo's ripped.
I guess if you tear up a shirt enough times, it's just one very big hole.
Alright, Omniscient Otter asked a question. They said, will the graphics of Thrive be like RTX and ray tracing in the full release on the higher settings?
If Godot adds ray tracing support, then I mean we can turn that on and try to make sure it looks good.
I think it already has something similar to that. It has if I remember correctly, Godot has some pretty serious like reflections rendering. But it does warn that it's quite it's pretty expensive and you gotta like make probes and all.
Yeah, I've seen that they have this CPU light mapper thing, and it's usually like pre-baking global illumination for scenes, but But
I'm
then
not even talking about
4.0,
that.
4.0, like they have full like global illumination system.
Yeah, I'm saying for the actual reflection code in the shaders, because I was like, obviously looking through all that. You could use a little bit of ray tracing. Like there's already it supports OpenGL's refract and reflect functions, which that's actually ray tracing too. So you could make like you know how when you hold up like a ball of glass, the edges of it are all like wobbly and contorted. You could do that in Godot natively.
Okay, yeah,
I'm sorry,
that.
someone at the door. Be right back.
Okay, so
So
yeah, I was thinking that, I mean, when people say ray tracing, I think real-time shadows is like the first thing, and then probably
yeah,
reflections is the second thing, but
yeah, that's the shadows. That's completely different. Yeah, we'll probably have to wait until Godot 4.0 for that type of stuff.
yeah, and yeah, probably
I'm back.
hopefully also like 4.0 has like the Vulkan ray tracing extensions like in it, so it might perform better like the reflections as well.
Yeah, so I guess that's a strong maybe depending on what you mean by ray tracing. But if we can do it, I will try to add it as a setting. I promise.
All right, so here Anthisiphalis, or however you pronounce that name, said, "Do you think humanoids aliens are possible? I don't think they are not very possible."
I don't think they're not very possible.
I feel like something with 2 legs and 2 arms is pretty doable.
Yeah, if you want to make them look like humans, then probably they will look way too floppy or something like that.
Yeah, that's probably a little different.
They're certainly one of the animals we know best how to animate, although we're the best judges of it, so it's the toughest to make it pass.
Yeah, I mean, I've said before that we probably won't have like Easter egg or something like that, that there are humans in the game. That would be like really hard to make, so let's just skip that, and Earth is not an Easter egg in the game.
It wouldn't be an Easter egg if he told you about it in advance.
Next up, we got Max Gom. Hi, I recently translated Friday into Russian 100% and will translate it again in a few days, and I'm interested. But when can we expect completed colonies?
I mean, this release is already pretty close. There's just a few more bugs to fix, and of course, like for the next release, I think we'll want that speed boost from the colony members, because otherwise you will become way too slow. After those bug fixes and maybe signaling agents, maybe after that I'd consider the binding agents feature like done.
Personally, I'm really hoping to double down on the figuring out how we can make colonies a bit more attractive of a choice. Because right now they don't really have any special benefits. So,
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
but that's just a project of mine, so.
Yeah, figuring out what benefits they should give is probably pretty difficult.
It is.
But thanks, MaxGum, for translating our game.
Yeah, most appreciated. Alright, so Bolsa's Dump asked, will NPCs be able to use binding agents?
Yes, at some point. When another magical AI programmer comes along and adds them to the game.
If you're that magical AI programmer, please come up.
And
Yeah.
then Brand. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if they were to arrive now, they would be way ahead of schedule, because for the current AI fixes, it took like, I think 2 years to get those, so there's over 1.5 years left for a new magical AI programmer to show up before
I like
they
to
are
believe I
behind
didn't freeze
schedule.
the AI code for another 2 years. That would be very sad if I ruined it because I did not do 2 years worth of work.
All right, so next question would be from Brand Flakes. Second of all, I wanted to know when the behavior tab will be added and what are the plans for it? What was your first question?
It will be added when someone programs it in. It will initially just allow the player to set the personality values for their species with sliders. So I mean, if I were to code that feature, I think it would take like maybe 30 minutes, 1 hour. It's like really basic stuff. So, but there's been like so many higher priority bug fixes and new features to add, so it has been postponed from my to-do list forever, basically. Even though it would be pretty easy to add. I'm kind of hoping that someone else would be like excited about the AI and would add those sliders in.
Maybe I'll take a look at it.
Been so long, I kind of forgot what I've had planned for it.
I mean, there are just 5 variables that determine AI of every species, including the player's species for all the NPCs of the same one. You really just need kind of sliders, or if you want to make it more attractive, something else to determine those. When I try to edit the UI, my entire repo crashes, so I can't do it, but I'm happy to show other people what variables to change.
I'll have to keep that in mind. Alright, and the Green Gringle asked, at what point would you all consider the cell stage to be finished, and when can we see some other stages?
Oh dear.
I mean,
It is certainly a hard question.
I mean, I would like to see all of the, or most of the accepted features in the release roadmap that's on the wiki to be finished, and then I'd be pretty happy to track everyone to multicellular stage as the official stage being worked on. But I'll probably like go ahead on my own to make some prototypes, as I've talked about before, so I probably don't have patience to wait for all of the features before wanting to like sketch out the later stages. But there's actually huge backlog of quite a few even very big features.
I might have to look into that because as it stands right now, there's a lot of uncovered territory when it comes to the multicellular stage. It hasn't really been plotted out, so anyhow, let's see. Oh dear. Daigido asks, what kinds of gameplay can we expect in the other stages after Cell Stage? Talk about what other stage you want.
Well, the plan is that you play as an individual until you reach like the tribal stage, after which you take over in a strategy view from there and play until the end of the game like that.
And I think I've mentioned it before, but whenever we get there, I want to make it my priority to work on like hive mind colony type creatures. Just because I really like those kinds of animals. So whenever we get there.
Yeah, I mean, we'll need some kind of feature then to balance that out. So maybe if you aren't a hive mind, your species members can disobey you or something. Maybe overthrow your government or something like that to
like
distinguish it. Because otherwise, if we don't add any of those features, it will be like if you were a hive mind, completely in control of all of the members of your species.
Yeah, definitely some design challenges there, but that's like, whenever we get to that point, that's what I really want to work on, more so than even like 3D stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that once we have like the multicellular pretty much finished, we can have enough of a clue of the rest of the game that maybe concurrently we could work on all of the stages. So I think that could attract some bigger team, so people who are more interested in different stages can join the team at the same time and work on the thing they most want to work on.
Really? That sounds like a very bold plan there. Like you're saying, after Microbe is done, you want to try to split out work between.
Well, I mean the skeleton structure, like the prototypes for each stage, once all of the game is like connected. That like, because for example now, if someone wanted to come along and work on like the strategy stages, they like couldn't. They first would have to like, I mean, they kinda maybe could start, but like the stage transitions need to be like planned out and coded before like you can like really start to like split out where work is happening.
Like basically, if somebody came in and they're like, I want to work on the Civ stage, they would have to write like a ton of basically boilerplate like code and stuff in Godot just to make a strategy game at all, like something simple, before they can even start working on the Civ stage of the game.
Yeah, and then their work would need to somehow be connected to the rest of the game, and we would need to like at that point like they would have to actually like code some of the state transition stuff. Otherwise it would be like completely separate from the main game. And I mean, it could maybe work, but like it would be quite the mess to accommodate someone who wants to work on the strategy stage currently without having like the supporting structure of the game. Reminds me of the people on Reddit like 2 years ago. Someone posted that they wanted to make Spore, but better, and they were planning on making 5 separate games, like completely separate. Like kind of reminds me of that, but like once we have like the prototype level stuff that you can actually like play from cell to the end of the game, like that will really open up like people like tweaking that part of that stage and etc. So I'm talking about that kind of development thing that can happen, but officially probably will like move sequentially from one stage to the next by like focusing on those issues and picking out the features for the currently worked on stage for the next release officially.
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of hesitant about the idea of working, like skipping a stage to work on another, because then my own design philosophy is basically I'm trying to get every feature to sort of carry over into the next stage in some way and form. For example, a single cellular stage, you create your own cells, and in a later stage, you can still design your own cells in the form of tissues. So if we go ahead and start building up another stage without the intermediate one, then connecting the two might become a bit of a Discordian nightmare.
Yeah. I was trying to explain that, but you probably said it much better, that without like the its connections being like planned out beforehand, it's very hard for someone to jump in and work on their favorite stage.
Yeah, that's pretty much what the prototypes would be, all that boilerplate code to connect everything. That's
just
someone
skeleton.
Yeah, that someone wouldn't write who wants to just work on a game or with the stage.
Alright,
Yeah.
well. We're ready to move on? I'll take that as a yes.
Yep.
So Jake the Snake 99 asked, "Well, there the mechanism to use more mutation points when using the editor, either using horizontal gene transfer or some kind of chromosome fusion upgrade." And my answer to that is I'm kind of hesitant to introduce ways to get more MP, but that's more just a holdover respecting the current design philosophy.
I think like discounts would be much better. Much better to design into the game. So, I mean, the effect would be the same, but you would get more. You would get more mutations done per editor cycle, but because the mutation points, it's kind of meant to be like a percentage value. So, 100 is 100% of the changes you can make.
All right. Yeah, I can get behind the idea of discounts. I think I've proposed something like that a few times in other designs. Anyway, so if you are satisfied with that, Tadat asked, "Will it be possible to become an empire of robots in the space stage?" And I'd love to say yes, but really it's kind of unclear if that would be possible or not.
Isn't there already a team for that? So we better make it
You know what?
possible
Not even
to.
mention it. I didn't even mention it. Yeah, there's a robotocracy theme.
Yeah,
How do you
yeah, we
pronounce
need
that?
to
Oh, yeah,
make it
there is.
possible.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Oliver's fine music will go unused.
Been
We programmed
foretold
the
in
theme music.
sacred
We just have to
text.
do the rest of it.
Isn't there even like a Robo battle theme?
I think there is.
There's 2 music tracks. All we have to do is the code and everything else. So it's almost done, really.
We just designed the game around the music we have.
I mean, that's how it works.
All programs are ultimately just Guitar Hero with a little more idiosyncrasies.
All right. Let's see. We already answered that question. Yes. Wait. Oh. Anthicathalus asks, "Do you think non-humanoid sapiens life is possible?" In other words, non-humanoid life is possible to be sapiens. And I would say most definitely.
I think everything will just be a crab.
As long as it can utilize a tool and create tools, it's probably capable of being a sapient.
Yeah, as long as it isn't a plant, I'm fine with everything that is not a plant gaining sentience. And maybe those space floating cloud organisms, those as well will be excluded.
All right, and the Green Goal asked, "How are you going to incorporate multiplayer, if at all? If there is multiplayer, how would you all want servers to work? Would each server be a different planet?"
In our frequently asked questions, I think it is in there, the multiplayer question, and it says that it's not a priority, and first we'll probably like make different stages, like some kind of variant for multiplayer. For example, a cell battle arena might be the first multiplayer component if that is worked on. But I made a multiplayer prototype with the previous engine, but yeah, that didn't get updated. But I think Godot has pretty good like multiplayer stuff built in, so it shouldn't be extremely difficult, just quite difficult to make a multiplayer mode.
I think the most difficult thing with multiplayer or anything is just the netcode, and if you want to make it like something competitive.
Well,
like
I mean, I've looked at the Godot stuff, and I think it already has node synchronization and other kind of netcode in it. So it should be relatively simple to like spawn the player entities on the server and then give the client the right to like reposition them. I think that's like almost like basic movement, like few lines of code, but then all of the game features actually need to like support that correctly.
Yeah, and it's not like our game is gonna be like Valorant or CS:GO or something where people need like super duper intense netcode or anything.
Competitive thriving. Well, I mean, that's what it is. But not in multiplayer.
Yeah, I mean, the real challenge would be to make all of the game like timescales and some player going to the editor and being in there for 10 minutes to like really match up with what other people are doing. That would be pretty difficult. So
Please.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was jumping over the joke there. You cut me off.
Yeah, actually, the issue of timescales is pretty hard to address because, well, you'd have first players sticking to the editor for a long time, and well, that means that other players can't play in the meantime, which is pretty much not cool. And also, you need to have the players evolving at the same pace because you can't really compare an editor step from the microbial stage to perhaps editor steps from later stages, and not to mention the part which will be more RTS based and where you'll have basically no time skip of millions of years. So yeah, pretty much unlikely, or well, the frequently asked question answer it by saying that it will be like kind of standalone stages, which I think is the only plausible issue for solution for multiplayer in Thrive, which is again not necessarily a priority.
Yeah, I mean the time
I
scales
agree.
is a really big issue, and many community members like forget that they will ask like, can we make new cell types in the space states or something like that, where it almost is like 100 years or 200 years the space states. And if you consider how little humans have changed in the past 5,000 years, then I mean the answer should be pretty obvious, but people still ask those questions that can be answered that think about the time scales.
Can
If it
you
helps-
imagine how?
Sorry, go ahead.
Can you imagine how much of a headache it would be to balance that gameplay around multiplayer?
Yeah, probably quite a big one for you.
If it helps, I mean, you can pass save files around. So, like, if you want to make a horribly unbeatable cell and pass it to your friend, you can pass a save file and make sure some variant of that cell is an AI, and then you can say, "Hey, try to survive, have fun."
Challenges.
Anyway, are we moving on to the next question now? And Thicothalus asked, are you gonna make a speculative evolution in the future? I'm not entirely sure what that question means.
Spec Evos are like when people, like basically the world building channel on Community. That's what Spec Evo is. For example, the book All Tomorrows, that's a Spec Evo because it's an evolutionary timeline that is speculative.
Right. I was just wondering if that was exactly what they meant, or if they're talking about something in regards to Thrive in particular.
Well, I mean, in a very broad sense, Thrive already tries to like simulate evolution from a starting point with random outcomes, so
the game kind of already is a Spec Evo.
Exactly. Anyhow, so next question, I guess. Just a guy asked, have any plan on adding in the modifying button? Also, any plan on adding anything new on the multicellular stage wiki page?
That was
I'm not entirely
a bit unclear, but was that kind of maybe about the organelle upgrade system, modification system.
That's the only thing I can think of with a modifying button.
Yeah, I mean, it is still planned. Not sure when will it be done. I think the design is pretty much locked down on that, and we just need to implement the system and add at least one upgradable organelle, and then like go from there to add more upgrades.
And as for the next part of that question, yes, I most definitely do intend to add more to the multicellular stage wiki as we go. There's not much to add yet. Alright. Oh gosh. And the Guido asked, have you read All Tomorrows? If yes, did you like the way it describes the evolution of these species? Find it interesting? I certainly found it interesting.
Likewise, I feel like I found it inaccurate or overly trying to narrativize evolution.
I think I found some of it pretty silly. Like, I think there was a species in that book that they evolved in space, and they evolved so that they could move around by farting.
We have spaceships. What's our best way to move around?
Oh no, the biospaceships people on the forums are going to use that.
Have they not already?
I don't think fart power has come up yet, but
I mean,
Well, if you think of it, basically, rocket thrust is farting, but for machines. Like,
it's just a
There's a
concept
little
of
bit of difference in the pressure, though.
yeah, it's just a concept of expelling matter to propel oneself. So I kind of get it, but it is pretty silly when you put it down like that.
Space shuttle's not a giant whoopee cushion. There's a little more science to that, I think. I'm not rocket science, but I believe.
There goes the rocket ship.
What's it like on Mars, Buckley? I heard you just launched.
Okay, I gotta compose myself.
Lift off.
Alright, so Nicholas O'Neill asked, do you guys follow archaeology and paleontology at all? And if so, do you think Robustus and Bozai belong as Australopithecines or I'm dying over here, guys. Or Heranthropus? I don't follow archaeology or paleontology personally. And my area of expertise is in living things mostly.
I feel like this question just goes to whoever understood those words. I mean, I can get that it means like things like Australopithecus and like whatever that's supposed to resemble.
yeah, basically that's about like having some fossil remnants of humanoids beings, and the question is to which branch you want to attach them. Although I loosely follow paleontology because of my field of expertise, but that's too loose for me to answer such a precise question.
Alright, well, I suppose that's going to be the best answer we get to that question. Brian Flakes asked, when can we get Cilia added? Also, when can we get bioluminescent cells? And I'm sure Hurlane could answer the Cilia question, or...
Cilia, well, I mean, it's waiting for someone to implement it into the game. I think someone made some kind of models for that, but then it just didn't advance. And I just saw the perfect question. Someone asked how to work on the game to get involved. So I think now is the time to
one of us.
Post the links for, or or at least like ask people to remember to like, subscribe, get involved, join the Patreon. Now we also accept donations, but basically I think we have pretty good resources for that. If you are a programmer, the source code is up on GitHub, and you can try to find or look through the issues to find something easy to work on, and you can just make a pull request to get started with developing the game.
Alright. Thank you for that, Hero Lanen, and yeah, we would very much love it if more people could join our efforts in building this mighty game. It is quite ambitious. You know, I was actually under the impression that the Cilia thing was actually held back by our physics problems. What with the turning speed and all that.
Well, I mean, not really, because like it could like percentage-wise affect the rate at which the cell turns. It doesn't actually need the physics turning, but it would be nice.
I see.
So basically, the only thing the Cilia is missing is a programmer to work on it, which is the case for quite a lot of things. Though also, I think maybe the model was never posted as like a model file, so maybe that is a bit problematic. But I think if some programmer picks up the Cilia issue, then it shouldn't take much effort to get to find some modeler to finish the Cilia model.
I'll have to do some digging and investigate that. Alright, and the next part of that question was about bioluminescent cells. And we're still not really sure how to implement that in the microbe stage specifically. Its
Well,
uses are a bit limited when nothing can see the light you produce.
Yeah, I mean even with that, like adding the organelle model for it, slapping a light source in the organelle model, I think that should be pretty doable quite fast. Thinking of gameplay implications would be a bit more difficult, but I think like majority of the work could be done like immediately.
That would probably have to be kind of like the thermoplast, where it's technically possible, but the actual like gameplay of it would have to be like non-lock or LAWK.
Well, I
Because
mean,
the thing is, what I imagine people would use those bioluminescent things for in the cell stage is to get light where there's not light. So, for example, photosynthesis, but we haven't observed this in nature. We only know it is possible. That's it, like the thermoplast.
well, I mean, yeah, maybe, but like the basic organelle doesn't like violate anything, so it could be added, and it could be like a basis for making multicellular organisms that emit light. So
but that's more reasonable.
even without the non-life as we know it switch, the organelle could be available, but maybe the effects would be limited.
Yeah, it could be, but the thing is, why would you need bioluminescence in the first place? Like, if it is for photosynthesis, then the thing is, you'll use your energy to produce light that you will turn in glucose/energy, so it is not very useful. And like overall, I fail to see any good reason why you'd want bioluminescence. Perhaps to attract like photosynthesizing microbes. That could be a possible way, but I'm not sure it bring much to you because, well, you know, like you've got kind of pheromones and all the like. So I really fail to see a reason for it to be a thing, and I fail to see the interest of it in itself. But perhaps people have ideas about it.
I kind of agree. To me, it's more something like we're just adding it to future-proof, because I mean there are bioluminescent things, and that's pretty important when you're bigger than a cell.
It's also just freaking cool.
It is.
It is.
But I mean, like, for example, something like muscle, that's going to be completely useless in the cell stage because of how expensive it would be. But that's going to be extremely important later on.
Well, moving on now, we have Omniscient Otter again, and they asked, like Explorer, will we get a preview of the planet before we spawn in? For example, its stats, atmosphere, aesthetics, etc. And I would say probably, since I think we had a brief thing on the books about a planet editor or system editor.
Well, I mean, on one hand, it would be kind of cool to see that, but I think overall, I'd prefer if you only see your planet once you like evolve to go on land and you can actually look at it yourself. So it would be more interesting to discover the
Yes,
planet.
I guess I
when you...
misinterpreted that question.
Yeah,
I was thinking in terms
like
of stats.
the atmospheric pressure or stuff like that. That could be like shown immediately, like the stats that you can play a normal game of Drive on this planet. You're good to go, or something like that.
Yeah.
So
but if
visually, you wouldn't see the planet, but you definitely know its composition and conditions.
Yeah, the issue is displaying the planet beforehand. Is that if we ever want to have a planet editor, so let's say you want to change some variables, and this will in the end affect how the planet looks, then you'd have to just run the computation every single time you change something, and that will perhaps be very time consuming for the player just to wait for the simulation to show anything. So overall, I think that just having the composition is something that is decent enough, and well, perhaps someday the visualization, but I'm not sure that's a major thing to put alongside with the editor and all the stuff.
I mean,
Well,
Thanks
even,
for the point.
me and
well, even sorry, go ahead.
me and that guy, Chemical, I think his name is, we're gonna work on the planets, and I think the main thing is with the mesh, like the shape of the planet, that actually affects the patches quite a lot. Because if it has a lot of, for example, like cracks, like like trenches, that's something that would affect where you can play and do stuff quite a lot, and what patches are available. Likewise, if you have a very smooth planet, that affects things too.
All right, so thank you. Max Gone asked another question. You just said that you need to do the whole game from the beginning. But then why is someone from your team already making planet generators?
I
Sorry.
just answered that.
Yeah, and
The terrain, like the terrain of the planet, that mesh, if it's like a super mountainous or, a planet with a lot of depressions, like a lot of trenches, that's going to really affect what patches are available. And likewise, if it's the opposite, where it's really smooth and it doesn't really have a lot of trenches, that also affects what patches you can go to.
I mean, even like the light wavelength would like affect. Maybe it could be shown in game or something like that. So like the chloroplasts could be like set to be different color or something like that on different planets. So I mean, there are quite a few places even in the microbe states that a planet generator can affect the gameplay at least a little bit.
indeed so. All right, guys. Here's the question. Here it is. Are y'all ready?
I've never been asked this before.
Would intelligent life in water eventually be possible? Kind of like the tool breeders from All Tomorrows.
Oh no.
Depends on what you mean by intelligent. I'm
Sure.
sure
Well, I mean,
What other features do you want to trade for it?
yeah.
We can program intelligent water life. What things in later stages do you not want to have in exchange? We can program anything. We can't program everything.
Yeah, a trade offer. So I mean, but we've never said that intelligent life, like tribal states life, couldn't be underwater. Like that's never been debated.
It's
But
just
like,
you would get stopped at a certain technological level.
yeah, it would be like, yeah, what now? You can't finish rest of the game. And then, like recently, these underwater people have started talking about tool breeding. Like they somehow will domesticate a species and breed them to be like blast furnaces underwater somehow. I don't like really pay attention to the underwater discussions because they make my brain melt and blow out of my ears, like it's been rehashed to death the discussion. And
if you go diving, we can melt underwater with your head.
I think that the question of the aquatic intelligent species and civilization is a scientifically interesting one, but in the scope of Thrive, you have the fact that we are coding the game from microbial stage. So in the end, what is possible to do in the microbial stage will determine what is possible to do later on. So my basic answer to this question is just to wait and see what comes out of microbial / multicellular stages, and just see if there is a possibility to make an intelligent aquatic species from this or not.
So
And when it
basically, in summary, we will see. But no.
I mean, yes, probably yes to the intelligence underwater. Like we have
Yeah.
dolphins here
Yeah.
on Earth, so
Oh yeah.
I mean there
yeah.
shouldn't be a
That's
problem
true.
with that. But if you want
No
to,
metal smelting.
yeah, I mean if you want to make a space rocket underwater, like, I mean, good luck trying to reason why that would be possible.
Sort of fart propulsion comes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
You need to fight very hard there, because escaping water is even harder than air. So
You just swim to
Cool.
the surface and then you let it rip.
yeah.
Evolve the ultimate Taco Bell.
All right. Max Gone asked, and is there going to be a plant hive species? And I mean, I'm not really sure what a plant hive entails. So,
Can you imagine
there's
it?
definitely
Like a
going to be
grass
plants.
growing together.
I mean, yeah, something like that. I guess I could see like a sort of communal resource sharing between plants. That would be something cool. But
Isn't there a forest here on Earth where like all of the trees are like genetically the same, and they have some kind of nutrient sharing between roots, like the entire forest? I think I
Yeah,
heard about that.
I think I
Yeah,
know
there are
something like that too.
Yeah,
I
you
know
also have-
mushrooms are often like that.
And mushrooms are like that. The actual life form of a mushroom is like this weird
Massive.
structure underneath the ground, and the things we see on top are actually just fruit.
They're just a reproductive organ. It's not the actual
Yeah.
organism alone. It's really cool. Y'all should look up how big mushrooms can actually get, like the actual mushroom organism.
Several square miles.
I'll second
For-
that forest of trees, though. I had seen that in a YouTube video. Like, apparently, it was a tree that grows by like shoots, by just roots underground pop up to make a new tree. Like, apparently, there's like a bajillion acres that's just one single organism. Like, they lose all their leaves together. Good stuff to Google.
Yeah, sounds like mushrooms.
mushroom trees. Minecraft was right all along.
Futuristic Gamer asked, when will the game will be fully finished? Is it 2025 or 2030? And I would say it's not necessarily quantifiable due to the constantly changing work speed of our development team. But right now it seems to be accelerating. Anything to add to that?
I
I'll take
mean,
that.
even 2030 is pretty optimistic.
But
Maybe
if I may
you
say,
will enjoy it.
yeah, if I may say though, I don't know if it will be 2025 or 2030, but in the end, it will be earlier if you join than if you do nothing. Like, that's a generic message to people here. I get that it's not always easy to start, especially when you're not familiar with coding, but Thrive is a nice project, and if you want to see it coming to fruition, then it is good to consider just joining or helping us the best you can. Of course, that's not mandatory at all, and you can enjoy the game by yourself and just doing things. But if you really, really want to see it coming anytime soon, then the best way to go is perhaps to just come and lend us a hand.
Yeah, and
Thank you,
another
Max.
Yeah, and like my whole philosophy with this thing, because I see this question a lot, I really don't try to think about like when Thrive will be done, and I'm not here to finish it. I'm just here like for the ride. I think that Thrive is going to be really cool, even if we just make it to say like very early creature stage. That would be really sick. So like I just hope it progresses. That's what I'm here for, and I feel like if other people had that view, it would be a lot funner and nicer to work on this project for everybody.
I mean, if nothing else, we're the world's best amoeba simulator right now. Try to find a better rival. If we add a worm simulator on top of that, if we add a jellyfish simulator on top, I mean, it just keeps. We set the goal as the entire universe. So, like, I feel like if we can set some sub goals, we've already got a good bit accomplished.
Like,
Yeah, well,
Right.
basically just go along with it as it goes.
Celebrate
Yeah.
the accomplishments as they come.
Like, yeah, making spaceships will be cool, but it'll also be cool if we can get the cells to actually look squishy.
Yeah. You said earlier that Thrive was going to be a very cool game, but I mean, it is already, and it's enjoyable just to bring incremental shifts to the game and just see it prosper. And yeah, the ride itself is a pleasant journey.
Basically, if you want to join for the journey, not the destination.
Well put.
Yeah, and the second best option is to like tell other people about Thrive, grow the community, spread awareness, maybe join the Patreon or donate, or once the game is on Steam, maybe, I mean, you can get the game on Steam to support the future development. And yeah, if that goes well, then I mean, we might have a dedicated team in like 5 years, making really good progress on the game.
So basically, remember to like and subscribe and hit that.
Alright, so Hernan Caceres asks, is there gonna be a non-lock button or parts, or is the game gonna be 100% lock?
Yes.
And yes, because we already have a thermosynthesis part or parts in the works, and it's most definitely not life as we know it. So we would probably have a toggle for people who don't really like that and people who love it.
So all of you guys that want the thermoplast, that's gonna be non-lock.
Yeah, we just need to get the person working on the thermoplast to make a return to finish the feature.
I mean, he pretty much finished. It's just, I think it just needs shaders. If I remember, there's a branch for it.
Oh yeah, I seem to remember, but the log switch was not done, so I mean,
Oh yeah,
there
that's
needs to
right.
be like a new page that, like when you hit new game, it brings up like the planet setup and a checkbox for life as we know it. So
That's correct.
that needs
Another
to be
thing
set
is-
up. But I mean, the planet generation part could be like it has one option which is default, so doesn't need to be done at the same time.
Another thing is that when I last tested the thermoplast and all that, the gameplay just didn't feel right. It didn't feel enjoyable to me. That's no fault of his, it's my fault really.
Yeah, I mean, once the technical
that's valid.
implementation is ready, then it's time to do the balancing and find tweaks.
Alright, so just a guy asked, is it possible that one day fossils of any organism that went extinct We persevered for the player to find one. Oh, I think they meant to say preserved for the player to find once they reach industrial stage. And I think that would be pretty cool.
That
don't
really
know.
that sounds just like an extra thing that would be in the Civ stage.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
think that's like worth considering right now.
I mean, yeah, that's not a priority. It won't affect the gameplay much. But I mean, it would be a feature that could be added. I mean, that's basically my opinion on most features, that it's probably not a high priority, but it can be added. And once the time comes, if some lone cowboy programmer comes along and makes a pull request, I'll be happy to take a look.
If your question though is that is it even possible at all in code? My answer is yes. That's very much doable.
mean-
It's just someone has to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we are planning on having like a tree of life, or what we are going to call it, like some kind of view for like the evolutionary tree in the world. So I mean, we'll need to save the information anyway, so like a fossil feature would be actually pretty, I mean, relatively simple to make. You just like grab some extinct species, then tweak the rendering so that it only shows the bones, and then place those species like underground or something. So I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that is one of the like the easier features that people like ask for.
DeGuido asked, do you think there will ever be a new Spore game, or is EA just gonna sleep on the franchise?
Spore's dead. Spore was actually like a really big flop for EA. They were very upset with it.
Right.
Yeah, no, I fail to see like Spore 2. What would they do with it? Like if they do it, they just give the spirit of it, and the spirit of it was cart niche, and well, I'm not sure there's much to bring to Spore as it is without basically rewriting everything into Thrive and more. Like so no, I don't think we'll see a Spore 2 someday, but
Then,
I'd be curious if it comes to be.
no, I could.
I just know it won't happen because I remember back in the day when Spore came out, that game almost, or I think it did kill Maxis, because it was supposed to do better than The Sims, but it just got pirated more than The Sims. So
I do feel like that if they do end up bringing another Spore title, it could be like a remaster of the game. Because right now it's really dated in graphics fidelity and all that. But other than that, I wouldn't think of them
I mean,
making like an actual Spore 2.
they probably could add like the aquatic states that was cut in development, add more in depth to the strategic stages, so they aren't just something you go through very fast.
I mean, it's such a sandbox. Just add 100 more parts, and now you have Spore remastered. I mean,
No, that's DLC material.
they've already done that. But I mean,
You can't add 100 parts. You gotta add 20, and then add the rest in the DLC.
No, not in a DLC, in a loot box.
Yeah,
Ah,
by
yeah,
the way,
that's
the
a
thermal
good
blast will be available in DLC for Thrive.
A DLC, so you can
custom
get
polka
loot
dot
boxes.
skin if you pre-order now.
but I feel like Spore 2 Scientifically Accurate Edition is just too much of a risk, and it's got to be left for us idiots to try to make Thrive.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Spore was a flop, and it's not even scientifically accurate.
Imagine
Commercially,
how much worse it would be if we put science in it. Ew.
yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Alright, so I guess moving on from that, Benny asked, will all life be carbon-based? And my addition to that is that unless we have some theorists that are really good at plotting out the specifics of, say, silica-based life, I don't think it's going to be happening anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, maybe in the future, but I mean, it would only like affect the microbe states. Like you would have a bit different, like maybe the compounds or organelles would be a bit different.
Yeah, somebody with a lot of expertise would have to like explain why that would even be like significant of a difference.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. This kind of this feature is still in there, like needs a theorist to work out the thing.
Like, you know, if it makes the way your creature works completely utterly different, that's one thing. But if it's just like, if it's just to say, oh, you're made of silicon now.
I mean, I wouldn't imagine that like the tribal states would be like really any different. Maybe like your basic needs or metabolism rate or something like that would be a bit different than carbon-based life. But I mean, I would imagine that only the microbe states would really have, like, there would be an impact being a silica-based life. So I mean, it could add a little bit of flavor to the game, but not sure if that is like worth the effort. And yeah, we would need to consult a theorist about what would the actual effects be.
All right, I suppose that's the most we can add to that. Let's see. TRH asked, how will the game transition smoothly from 2D to 3D?
I guess I can answer this.
Go ahead.
So, with the current membrane like code, how it works is you have points on your cell. So like let's say I make a ball, like I make a circle of hexagons. If it detects that it can just make a spear to represent your cell, it's gonna put 1 point right in the center of your cell, and it's gonna draw a spear. And then if you have some other shape, like you have an X, it'll detect, all right, so we can put a spear here, and then we can put rows of spear like diagonally like this and diagonally like that, and we get that shape. So basically you have points along each of your like groups of hexagons that make spears, and this makes your membrane. I don't know if is that clear. Do you guys like kind of understand the concept?
I get the idea.
Yeah, so anyways, what's nice about this is I made this all like, it has interfaces and stuff to where it's not directly tied to the membrane generation. You actually have an interface where you can reference all of this geometry and use it for other things. So like that way it makes the membrane. You could also apply that to making colonies. You could apply that to making just about anything where you arrange hexagons to make something. So it would actually be very easy. You would just, instead of generating a membrane over those spears, you would like place, cells. Probably in like some sort of particle effect or something, and then eventually you would just go back to rendering a mesh.
All right, thank you for that explanation, Nins.
Yeah, was it clear? Does anyone have any questions?
I don't. But, I mean, I guess I'll check the stream. No questions regarding that yet.
I guess
I'm afraid I have to go now. I got some things to do. I'll leave y'all with one more question
I mean, we've been almost live for 2 hours, so I think we could maybe like end the stream here. I mean, if Buckley has to go, so.
Alright.
I don't think being here for like 5 more minutes to be exactly 2 hours would be like any benefit, so maybe we will end here.
Yeah, his questions can go on forever.
Yeah.
Let's just ask one more though while we're at it. Just one more because there's plenty. When you reach the civilization stage, will you be able to play Fryth in Fryth?
No.
Sure.
I think it would be a fun, yeah.
That would be funny.
Like a little mini game.
Just starts a whole new game of Thrive. Good luck with your save file.
Alright, well. So, anything we need to add for our closure?
Thrive the text adventure. That's an Easter egg.
I don't think we need to add anything. If
Alright, well.
everyone says bye, and I'll end the stream. So
Alright, see everybody.
Goodbye.
Thanks for showing up.
Bye.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
yep, another good drive stream. Bye everyone.